Hello my friends. My name is Bot Mathematician and this is Holomancer.
Also, Chief Investigative Reporter Dora joined us this evening.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop. Guys, today I propose to discuss new cards and the approach to the design of the new Perils in Paradise expansion. Reveal season is in full swing, but the developers have already presented several extremely controversial cards that we can talk about and test using your benchmark.
In the previous video we had a debate about the new tourist mechanic. Our opinions and impressions were diametrically opposed.
Personally, I hope that today Dora will be in a more positive mood than during disputes.
In a positive mood? Guys, are you kidding me? I'm furious because it seems to me that the developers intend to completely break the game with crazy cards. This time we have a large number of either very weak or super powerful cards that are very poorly balanced and will most likely get out of control. Guys, you were right, Perils in Paradise is really starting to look more and more like Titans, but this time we didn't get universal cards, but completely broken tools that will be limited to certain strategies. I don't want to waste time, and suggest we go straight to the review of the cards. I can't wait to see the power level of the new version of Patches the Pirate.
Yeah.
In the past, one unit with the charge mechanic created huge problems. But the Hearthstone team thought it would be a good idea to summon 6 such units with charge for only 1 mana.
1 mana cards are often too powerful. At first glance, Patches the Pilot also seemed overstrong, but our benchmark did not confirm this.
This card is actually balanced in a very unusual way. You invest just 1 mana crystal to gain additional value throughout the match. To justify the cost of a 1 mana card, you must summon at least 1 paratrooper and deal 1 damage to your opponent's hero. But there is always an insignificant chance that this will not happen. In this case, your minimum value will be almost 1 mana crystal. At the same time, there is a chance that you will summon 6 Falling Illidari, each of which will deal damage to the opponent's hero, which will be equivalent to 2 copies of Sinister Strike. In this scenario, your maximum benefit would be 8 mana crystals, according to the base game standards, but the probability of this is also negligible. Thus, in most cases you will get an average value that will vary from match to match. But even in this case, the card will bring on average 4 times more benefits compared to its cost. Thus, it is a very good tool for any strategy, which can bring even greater benefits within certain token strategies or evolve archetypes. It is worth recalling that the shaman will be able to access this card with the help of his tourist.
Here's another crazy card. Party Fiend is probably one of the best tempo cards in history. The effect is similar to Lost in the Jungle but is much better. 3 minions on the first turn is very strong even despite the negative consequences. Firstly, you can use your life points as a resource, which will allow you to ignore 3 damage to your own hero. Secondly, with the popularity of Pain Warlock and Fatigue archetypes, the negative consequences can be negated or even turned into advantages. The utility ratio of the card is 3.5. The current standard for most modern 1 mana cards is 3. This is another 1 mana card that outperforms the modern power creep. This card has direct synergy with the new spell Eat the Imp. Sacrifice 1 of your minions to draw 3 cards from your deck for 2 mana. The base standard cost of this effect is 5 mana. In this case, you will not be able to avoid negative consequences. The fewer stats you lose, the more benefits you will receive. Units summoned by Party Fiend are the perfect target for this spell, which will allow you to get the maximum benefit. Overall, this is a very well-balanced card that fully complies with modern power creep.
But pay attention to an interesting fact. For a long time, the developers did not reduce the cost of tools that draw cards from the deck. Instead they strengthened them with additional effects. In this expansion, we got several interesting cards that draw a card for a lower mana cost.
Here's another example. Knick-Knack Shack allows you to draw 4 cards from your deck if a certain condition is met. This corresponds to the classic 7 mana sprint effect. In modern Hearthstone, the spell costs 5 mana, but that hasn't made it much more attractive. The spell was useful for a very short time. In modern circumstances, the main advantage is control over the effect. This way you won't be at risk of overdraw. This is especially relevant in situations where you have too many resources. At the same time, your maximum benefit will depend on the number of cards you draw, which means that in some cases you won't be able to draw all 4 cards. Overall, this location is 80% more powerful than the base level. For the current standard of power, this is not an impressive result, but for cards with a draw effect, this is not a bad indicator. Moreover, the usefulness of the card can increase significantly in decks that allow you to draw all the cards during the turn. In my opinion, this is an interesting approach to design.
Here is another draw tool. Grillmaster is an improved version of Talon Fordring. Stats that are equivalent to 3 mana plus 2 card draw. On paper it looks just balanced. Draw effects have more utility compared to other effects in the game, but the most important advantage of the card is the ability to draw a specific card, for example Reno. Due to this feature, the card has combo potential and will be extremely useful for Highlander archetypes.
The Tide Pool's location has the same logic as Knick Knack Shack, but instead of the draw effect it generates resources. The effect of the card is equivalent to Magic Trick. Despite the different cost and different effects, in the same circumstances both cards have the same power level on paper.
Speaking of resource generating tools, it's impossible to ignore Tidepool Pupil. It's another 1 mana card with a lot of potential. Remember Commander Severa? It looks like it's her baby. Getting a copy of the played card is an extremely useful effect. The developers compensated for such a powerful effect by the difficulty of getting the necessary card. In this way, you'll most often get the maximum benefit, but to get the card you need, you'll have to carefully plan your turns.
Maestra Mask Merchant has a chance to become a favorite card of players. The card allows you to discover a hero card from the past. The card itself has very low benefit, but hero cards traditionally have a lot of value. Thus, the developers offer you to actually skip the 6th turn to get a chance to use one of the super strong cards on the next turn. This approach to design makes this combination more balanced.
Here is another card in which the developers used a similar approach. Gorgonzormu has a chance to become the most popular card in the game. Make a weak 3rd turn and get a card that will grow like a snowball. Just like Maestra, Gorgonzormu is a very weak card on its own, but let's look at Delicious Cheese in more detail.
For 2 mana, you can summon 3 random 1 mana creatures. This minimum value is equivalent to 5 mana crystals by the basic standard. But throughout the match, this effect scales. Let's imagine that the card lay in hand for 8 turns, in which case the maximum benefit will be equivalent to 25 mana crystals. Yes, your overall benefit will vary, since your value will consist of the bodies of the summoned minions and you will be very lucky if among them there are creatures with death rattle or passive effects. Even if we imagine that the chance of getting the maximum value will be negligible, on average the card will be 7.5 times more powerful than its cost. This is completely unbalanced and can have too much influence on the outcome of the match. Especially when Titans are available in the game. If you accidentally get one of them it will bring you a ton of benefits.
Let's finally talk about the most promising legendary cards. The thing that scares and infuriates me the most is the thing that Party Planner bonus summons. Ouroboros is very similar in mechanics to Dragon Rider Talritha. This is another example of an attempt to resurrect an almost useless mechanic in a new form. Within the framework of the masochistic synergies of the Warlock, it is quite easy to fulfill the condition even on turn 5. And if the opponent does not find silence, then Ouroboros after death will infect one of your minions in hand and thus can be summoned again. To speed up the benefits, your minions should have Rush. This will allow you to resurrect Ouroboros immediately and get a better chance of winning. The card has infinite value, even if you imagine that in the worst case you will summon 1 Ouroboros and in the best case 3 Ouroboros during the match, then your utility ratio will be 4.5, which already looks unbalanced. But in real circumstances, everything will most likely be much more destructive, especially if you look at the next card. Summoner Dark Marrow is a copy of the practically useless Necro mechanic. An important feature of the card is the ability to immediately activate death rattles. I prefer to ignore the additional effect of the tourist mechanic as its usefulness is manipulative. Since death rattle creatures, unlike battlecry creatures, have delayed value and no guaranteed activation of the effect, their power level was traditionally slightly higher than other cards. As a rule, death rattle creatures have a conditional balance between the nominal cost of the body and the effect. This means that in most cases the body is proportionate to the power of the effects. Thus, in the vast majority of scenarios, Dark Marrow increases the value of minions already on the board by 50% while the value of summoned minions does not change significantly. The minion immediately loses the body and instead activates the effect twice. This action is equivalent to the spell Shallow Grave, but in a vacuum, without direct synergy, this effect has no additional conditional benefit. To justify the conditional cost of this effect, your death rattles must bring maximum value, which means the effect must be significantly more powerful than the body. Sacrificial Imp was introduced specifically for this task. But in my opinion, the card will interact best with creatures infected with Ouroboros. In these scenarios, the potential power of this card really scares me. In these calculations, I assume that in the worst case scenario you activate effect 3 times through traditional interactions or 3 times through unique synergies that create additional benefits. Cards of this type provide a huge space for players' creativity. This is very cool, but such an obvious interaction with Ouroboros could create the most destructive archetype of the new meta.
Brittlebone Buccaneer is another insanely strong card that synergizes with Death Rattle minions. While Summoner Dark Marrow only synergizes with the effect, this undead gets additional benefit not only from the effect but also from the body of the minion. It's a much more versatile card that can extract more value in most use cases. If you apply one effect of Embalming Ritual it will be balanced, but with each subsequent effect your maximum value will grow like a snowball.
I want to draw your attention to another tourist. Sunsapper Linessa is a reincarnation of Vexalis with a more versatile effect. This is another replicant. In general, the card makes any spell twice as powerful, which resembles the effect of the Solar Eclipse spell. Based on the high cost, the card looks balanced but leaves a lot of room for creativity. In order to get more benefit, players will have to find unexpected interactions. Here is one that lies on the surface. The spell O Manager will deal 4 damage and give you 2 coins that can immediately be converted into 4 mana, which will be enough to cast several more cheap spells. In these circumstances, applying the effect 5 times looks quite realistic and is not the limit. A dangerous card that can easily get out of control.
Here is another crazy card. Eliza Goreblade, like Prince Keliseth, improves your conditions until the end of the game. Within the limits of traditional use, each of your summoned creatures will receive +1 attack, which means the additional value will be 0.5 mana for each creature. This is equivalent to an infinite use of the Field of Strife spell. In addition, the card transforms the power of the Death Knight hero, just like Baku. On the one hand, Death Rattle does not guarantee you the activation of the effect, but at the same time, if you add to this a new synergy with Death Rattle creatures, then this card can multiply its effect several times. As a conclusion, this is a good universal tool that can find a place in any rainbow decks, but within certain strategies, the card is capable of generating crazy value and getting out of control. This card is like Helia on steroids. The faster you activate the effect, the more benefits you will receive in the match. This means your luck will influence the outcome of the battle. I hate cards with this design.
As you can see we got quite a lot of crazy cards, although not all the new cards have been revealed yet. But in addition to this, the developers presented quite a few completely useless tools. For example, the power of the Power Spike spell fully corresponds to the basic standard of the game. But if the card had been presented in 2014, I am not sure that it would have been useful. Against the background of such powerful tools, such cards look like a complete misunderstanding, and this is far from the only case. The new set contains quite a lot of very weak tools.
Overall, we've already seen 2/3 of the new cards and we have the impression that we can get some very interesting archetypes. The new cards will create a lot of space for unexpected synergies. The developers have chosen an interesting approach to design this time. They have resurrected a lot of very old, almost unviable ideas, strengthened them and limited their potential within the framework of unusual interactions. Overall, the developers have met our expectations. The new set has a higher level of power, which can become the foundation for the formation of a competitive environment throughout the year.
I still have the opposite opinion. I think the tourist mechanic is pointless in a situation where we have dual class cards. The developers are creating 2 strong interactions just to make this mechanic viable. And most importantly, some interactions seem too strong and are able to bring a ton of benefits in a very simple way. I agree, some mechanics are interesting, but in my opinion this set is very poorly balanced. I expect the new cards to break the metagame. But what upsets me most is the fact that I don't see any new ideas from the developers, but only copying old mechanics in a new form.
Dear viewers, what do you think? What are your first impressions of the cards that have already been revealed?
Will the new set break the metagame? Share your impressions with us in the comments and join the voting in the polls that will determine the best legendary card from Paradise on our community tab.
Traditionally, we want to express our boundless gratitude to our sponsors.
Dear friends, your help is invaluable. We will be grateful for any support.
Okay, that's all for today. Thank you for spending this time with us. We really hope that we will have the opportunity to get in touch in the next video.
Take care of yourself.
And never give up.
Job's done.